Welcome to the Workbench and welcome to another episode of Wheels Wings TV. Today we have the new 1/350 scale Oberon Class submarine kit from OzMods. Secure the hatches, let's dive in. So, first thing of note, this is a full resin kit. This is not styrene, this is polyurethane resin. Completely different material. Need to take care when you are working with this. So if you're doing a lot of sanding, a lot of cutting, a lot of dust, wear breathing protection, wear a mask. Or use plenty of water when you are sanding to cut down on the dust. Hence, this is not a kit for a beginner. Although if you're looking for a start in full resin kits, a submarine is not a bad idea. So we've got pretty much our entire submarine here in bubble wrap. All of our smaller bits in a little plastic bag, instructions, and a nice little mini catalog of everything currently available from OzMods. So that is it in its entirety. Seems to be a nice clean casting. Now this one does have some air bubbles at the very tip of the bow. So we're going to have to be very careful if we have to do any sanding here that we don't expose those, but a little bit of putty or super glue would definitely take care of that. Got our torpedo doors, torpedo tube doors. There are some scribed lines on the top here, a little shallow. We can always deepen those. All the various flood holes molded along the side. I don't know how much of this is is actual keel of the boat versus how much is going to be molding plugs, so we'll check the constructions. I imagine we would remove that. Overall, nice and clean, doesn't feel really oily, but still resin, you do want to make sure you clean it off really good. Maybe just a faint little seam line, maybe a few little scuffs on the surface here and there. Resin casting is more of an art than a science, as anybody who does it would probably tell you. Yeah, that looks, as far as resin goes, looks quite good. Like I said, a few little air bubbles we'll have to keep an eye out for, but that kind of goes with the territory. But overall, that looks pretty good. Very little assembly there, anyway. All of our small pieces. First off, we have the sail or the conning tower, whatever you prefer. Nice and clean. All the various periscopes and radar towers and other devices all can be posed extended, raised. Little rough at the bottom here. But we do have to cut this mold plug off, so I might have to do a little bit of filling on the bottom here. I would assume we cut here. There is a line here. We'll have to see if we got to cut to that line or if we just cut this plug off. That looks pretty good. And a little bit of different colors in the resin here, but doesn't seem to be voids. So that looks pretty good. Just have to maybe tidy up that corner there. Looks pretty good. We have our sonar domes. There's 2 different styles on the Oberon Class, so consult your references as to which one. Those look good. Molded very, very small plugs here and very thin, so that'll be easy to clean up. Probably get those off with a knife and just a little bit of sanding. This one doesn't seem quite as rounded as it maybe should be, but overall looks pretty good. Our various dive planes all molded together with little attachment stubs, which would have in the bow and the stern, so those look pretty good. And I would imagine we've got rear, front, and bow and stern planes, and I would assume some rudders there. And of course, OzMods Australia 2020, so this is a really new kit. Got our propellers. You're going to want to be very careful getting those off of the plug. You don't break those, because something like that's not going to be easy to source a replacement for or make a new one of. We've got some, I believe that's the rudder, and some more fins or stabilizing bits. We've got our prop shafts, nicely done. You might choose to maybe replace some of that with some brass or styrene tubing, but as long as you get that off of the mold plug easy, that looks okay, nice and clean. Anyway, not a lot of roughness, nice and smooth. So these molds are probably still pretty fresh. And parts for a simple little display base. Finally, the small, easy to break pieces. So we get our snorkel tubes, our radar, our periscopes. Little bit of flash on some of these, so just careful scrape down with a blade. Should clean those up. You might choose to replace some of these with some fine metal tubing, just to keep Murphy at bay, because what can be broken will be broken, especially delicate parts like these. But a little bit of cleanup and those should look just fine. And nice packaged on a little piece of card here so they don't get broken in transit. That's all the parts. We've got our instruction papers here with our decal sheet. Now you can, according to the box, you can do any of the 27 Oberon Class submarines built in markings for Royal Navy, Royal Australian Navy, Royal Canadian Navy, the Brazilian Navy, and the Chilean Navy. And right here in the top corner, we've got our pennant numbers for Ojibwa, Okanagan, and Onondaga, as well as the red maple leafs, and all the various other pennant numbers for the other subs with our draft markings, and a nice big Oberon Class label there that we can put on our display base. Printed by Ronin Graphics. I'm assuming that's probably a domestic Australian decal printer. I'm not familiar with them, but these look to be pretty good. We will, of course, see how good when we get to that point. Nice simple decal sheet, and it's nice to see guys do this sort of thing. You know, come out with a subject that was used by many different militaries, many different people. Put decals for every possible one you could want to do, rather than what some mainstream manufacturers do is like, well, here's the American version, and then here's the British version. Well, it's the exact same thing, just different decal sheet. Give us all the decals in one go. So thank you. Okay. Simple, Instructions just printed a little bit black and white in color on just regular paper. Not suitable for children. Like I said, this is resin, so make sure you know what you're doing when working with this stuff. History on the Oberon Class. And specifically, we're interested in the Canadian ones. 3 Canadian submarines built with improved air conditioning. Canadian Oberons used United States Navy torpedoes. And as I said, Ojibwa, Okanagan, and Onondaga. We kept the O names, but we used the named them after Canadian First Nations. Health and safety here. Wash parts, wash your hands. Careful when using glue. We wear gloves. Important things, you do not want to breathe in resin dust. And some tips about working with the pieces, cutting them off, sanding them, gluing them, test fitting. So if you're new to resin kits, walks you through here pretty good. Okay, actual instructions. So we start with our prop shafts, propellers, and the mounts. These get attached to the rudder, which then gets attached to the lower hull. And by the looks of it, this is the actual keel for the submarine, so we're not removing any of that. So I'd be tempted to put the rudder in place first, make sure that's lined up, and then attach the prop shafts, but we'll cross that when we get to it. Assembling the stand. So those parts 12 and 13 are optional depending on period and/or Navy. So that's our sonar dome. So make sure whichever particular submarine you are using, you use the right piece. We have options for deployed or raised forward dive planes. So not usually on the surface, they would be raised up. Install the rear dive planes, and I guess use the aircraft vernacular, the stabilizers. And last but not least, put the sail or the conning tower with all of the various scopes, and you have a finished submarine. So not a lot of parts, but you're going to want to spend a lot of time on cleanup and prep, making sure all the parts are going to go together properly. A little bit more work involved with these than your typical injection molded plastic kit. But looks like it should go together relatively pain-free. And we've got our marking guides. So these are going to be Royal Navy submarines. Oberon, Ocelot, Odin, Olympus, Onslaught, Onyx, Opportune, Opossum, Oracle, Orpheus, Osiris, Otter, and Otis. With various histories and information. Of course, you can research those further. We get our draft markings, pennant numbers. We got the Royal Australian Navy. Onslow, Orion, Otama, Otway, Ovens, and Oxley. Brazilian Navy, Riachuelo, I will assume. I will not butcher the names of the Brazilian Navy. The Royal Canadian Navy ones. the Chilean, the O'Brien, and the Hyatt. So I guess Chile did not really rename them. Cool. So basically, any color you want as long as it's black in terms of paint scheme. With a little bit of brass or bronze color for your propellers, and that's about as creative as you can get with color schemes. At least the Canadian ones have a little bit of color with some red maple leaves. And just some suggestions for applying the decals. Cool. So, OzMods' new 1/350 scale Oberon Class submarine kit. A cleanly cast resin kit with very few parts and a very simple paint scheme should offer a relatively quick and pain-free build. I've built a few submarine kits, but this will be my first foray into a full resin kit and my first one from this manufacturer. So if you haven't already, subscribe so you do not miss our eventual build review of this kit. And of course, it is available for sale on the Wheels and Wings e-store. Thank you very much. Catch you next time.